Hey, good afternoon to you. 507 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin joins us at 5:30 as FBI employees launch a lawsuit against the Trump Justice Department for attempting to hold them accountable. A lot of drama going on at FBI headquarters. We'll talk to Kyle about that coming up. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
If you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
A statement from the much-improved White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, representing President Trump this week, talking about how USAID is a dumpster fire of wasteful spending. Here with more, Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland's Fighting First Congressional District joins us now. He's also the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so what's USAID up to, and why is the left so upset that we're asking that question?
Well, because we pulled back the curtain, and it wasn't pleasant to see. The bottom line is that we've known for years that USAID is basically a laundering scheme to far left foreign entities and NGOs, and now the curtain's pulled back. They're upset.
So when we start exposing all this spending, and you heard Caroline Leavitt lay out some of the more ridiculous things that we've discovered, you point out that the left is upset. Why? Is it because their donors or perhaps their own families have been benefiting from this unaccountable agency?
Well, some of them just believe in this nonsense, like transgender, comic books, transgender plays, and operas. I mean, some of them actually are true believers in this stuff, but the American public isn't, and that's what they're sad about. Again, they've been pulling the wool over Americans' eyes for years, and now it's, like I say, curtains pulled back, and nobody likes what they found behind there.
Senator Chuck Schumer is out releasing a bunch of statements in the last 48 hours, angry about all of this. He's saying that Elon Musk and his team of investigators are somehow contravening democracy. But correct me if I'm wrong, Congressman, didn't the American people just vote for this exact kind of accountability?
They absolutely did. And look, I hope that Chuck Schumer talks a lot about how we should send money to foreign countries to do this kind of thing, because it will dig the Democrats into an even deeper hole.
President Trump isn't slowing down. Apparently, these Doge investigators have been spotted at FBI headquarters now, according to CNN. Additionally, we're hearing a lot of reports that the president is trying to figure out a way to wind down the Department of Education. What's happening here, Congressman Harris?
Well, look, in the Department of Education, I mean, look, the president ran a business. Elon Musk ran a business. They know if one of your divisions was failing miserably, and it's failed for 40 years, there's no one going to argue that education is better in this country than the day the Department of Education was founded. If you're running a private business, that division is closed. You sell off you close that building, you fire all the employees, and you move on to something you can do well, which is pretty rare for the federal government, but they certainly couldn't do education well.
Yeah, no, not at all. So that's it's interesting and thrilling to see President Trump actually getting a lot of this done. I want to move to his nominees now. In the United States Senate today, two really big nominees advancing. Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, as well as RFK Jr. advancing to become the HHS Secretary. We're still awaiting full Senate votes there. Were you surprised to see them get out of committee, and what does that tell you that they did?
No, look, I think that the Republicans are going to put enough heft behind both those nominations to get them across the finish line. I think the Republicans just feel that President Trump won the presidency and he deserves to have his cabinet appointees. None of the Democrats minded Tulsi Gabbard when she was a Democrat in the House. I served with her. She'll make a great DNI person, and people didn't mind RFK as long as he was in their party. But now that he's crossed party lines, all of a sudden it's objectionable. Again, this is the kind of things Americans just, they just hold their nose on this kind of thing happening in Washington.
Yeah, on RFK heading towards becoming the HHS Secretary now, in addition to being a member of Congress, you're also a medical doctor. What do you think of the presentation that he made before the Senate? He came out and was talking about, hey, look, we've got all sorts of chronic health problems that nobody is seriously addressing. That's what I want to do. What did you think of that?
Oh, he's absolutely right. There's no question about it. I've been trying to deal with this with the the food stamp program, the SNAP program, where we allow tens of billions of dollars to be spent on things that we know are bad for people. Highly processed foods, ultra processed foods. Look, he's absolutely right on that. With regards to vaccines, he says, look, let's just look at the science and let's let people decide given the information. I thought that's the way you're always supposed to operate in a democracy, but apparently, again, some of the left feels no. Vaccine mandates, protecting vaccine manufacturers from any liability, that's what you ought to do in a democracy, and he just disagrees.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren today even, I'll play some audio coming up of this, she came out and she said that it is totally a bad thing to sue vaccine manufacturers, that they should be protected from lawsuits. And she said ludicrously that they have very thin profit margins, so therefore they should be protected from lawsuits. What is this, Congressman?
Was her nose growing when she said that? I mean, the bottom line is that's so obviously not true. I mean, pharmaceutical manufacturers amongst the most profitable in the country. Clearly, Pfizer and Moderna benefited greatly from the government contracts and then the liability protection. The bottom line is that look, people should just get the information and make the decision on their own. If a vaccine is truly safe, it's going to be fine, and people are going to decide to get it. If it's questionable or maybe not as necessary as the government would have you believe, which was the instance in COVID vaccines for young children, young healthy children, then you should give, in that case, parents the ability to say no.
Yeah, that's right. And also, we should stop pretending like you're not allowed to ask questions about medication that's injected into your body, including whether or not it has side effects. That's a deeply reasonable and, in fact, important question that anyone should raise with their doctor.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And look, we learned in medical school, you discuss the risks and benefits, and help the patient make the proper decision. And apparently on some of these things, that's just gone out the window. It's there's going to be no discussion of risk and benefits. The government will tell you that you are going to benefit from this and you are going to have it. Yeah. And that is not the way you should deliver health care. One
thing I was struck by in RFK's hearing is the insistence by senators to think of health as only something that we medicate. That it's like the standard operating procedure seems to be, well, there has to be a drug to cure this ill. Whereas RFK's position was, no, we need to dramatically improve our diet and our exercise regimes and get to a place where we're healthy so we don't need this medication, Congressman.
Yes, he's absolutely right on that. Again, he is a visionary on some of that. Look, we know that there are powerful influences in this country that are going to oppose him every step of the way, but he's doing the right thing. I mean, in his mind, and he's correct on this. This is going to help the American people in the long run, and I hope that he gets approved by the Senate and he hits the ground running over in HHS and just makes us a healthier nation that way.
Yeah, me too. All right, Congressman Andy Harris from Maryland. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Always good to chat. There's Congressman Andy Harris and reacting to the fact that RFK Jr. has advanced in the United States Senate today, out of committee, heading towards a full Senate vote for confirmation to become Secretary of HHS, which would be a very big deal. Somebody who's actually focused on health. Elizabeth Warren, as I noted a moment ago, very angry about this. She hates this. Now, this is the same woman who pretends like she's really sticking it to the billionaires and the big corporations. She's holding them accountable. Pocahontas today, angry that RFK Jr. advanced out of the Senate Finance Committee.
This is not only about a private company that gets sued and has to pay out. Vaccine manufacturers often operate on very slim profit margins.
Oh, my.
If they get sued repeatedly and successfully, they simply move out of the vaccine space. We've already seen this happen with vaccines in the past. 20 years ago, we watched vaccines just move away if they did not have protection from these kinds of lawsuits. The consequence of Mr. Kennedy's ability to make those lawsuits easier is also the ability to shut down access and manufacturing for vaccines for every one of us.
That may be, the audio you just heard, may be among the most corrupt statements that any United States senator has ever uttered. She is a recipient of all sorts of pharmaceutical dollars. She has received millions upon millions of dollars in publicly disclosed funds from the medical industry. And she is arguing that they are sacrosanct and should not be subjected to civil litigation at all. What? And the idea that she somehow stands up for you and for us, it's a bunch of garbage. And I have a headline in front of me. Their profit margins are very thin. You ready for this? Here's the headline. Big Pharma raked in $90 billion in profits with COVID-19 vaccines. That's right. And what happened? The government, including goons like Elizabeth Warren, protected them from civil liability for any injuries that may be caused by the experimental vaccines. And she stands up there and she says, oh, no, this is really bad. Can you imagine if gigantic pharmaceutical corporations could be held accountable if they hurt people? We can't have that. They operate on thin margins, like $90 billion for COVID. $90 billion. That's the profit margin. She's unreal. Everything she says is a lie. Every single thing that woman utters is a lie. I'm disappointed that RFK didn't get a chance to call out her pharmaceutical contributions. He did it to Bernie Sanders, and Bernie went crazy. Bernie went full-blown Bernie in the middle of the hearing. But good for RFK Jr. advancing out of that nonsense. It sounds like Elizabeth Warren is a no vote on the RFK, on the full Senate vote for RFK. She's a goon. She's a goon. And she's defending these big pharmaceutical companies. All right. Let me see here. All right. We've got more coming up in a moment, including more of your phone calls. It's 5-9. All right. Phil calling in from Fredericksburg now, line 5. Hello, Phil. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, look, I just want to say President Trump closing USAID the way he did is absolutely historic. And that is exactly how he needs to go across this government and tear out all of the waste that's going on. He should go down to Department of Education, Homeland Security. We don't need Homeland Security. We got 10 intelligence agencies who can do that job. They should close that too. They should close a lot of agencies. But the way he did it with USAID, oh, my God, that was beautiful. Closing those employees out so they couldn't clean those hard drives out, so they couldn't hide the evidence, that was magnificent. And I would like to point one thing out. Elon Musk did not do this. Elon Musk advised President Trump. President Trump saw that Elon was hitting on all cylinders and said, that's a good idea. Let's knock this out the park.
That's right.
And he got it done for the American people.
This is what the American people voted for. The left is trying to lie about that right now. They're suggesting that Elon Musk is some sort of unelected free agent who's doing whatever he wants. That's not the way this works. We voted knowing that Musk and company were going to be a part of the process to examine all this, and I like what they're finding. I hate what they're finding, but I like that they're doing it. And USAID shutting it down virtually. Today, the headline at Politico, Trump moves to put nearly all USAID Washington staff on leave. Some 1,400 people notified today that they're being put on administrative leave, on top of about 600 who were already placed on leave starting Sunday night. So bringing that out-of-control agency to a screeching halt, Phil.
Fantastic. I mean, and the thing that gets me is the media hates Trump so much, they don't give him the credit for being the president. He is the president. He is the top dog. He's the guy who's looking at this and going, we're not paying for that, and we're not paying for that, and we're not paying for that, and we're not paying for that either. That money's going back to the American people, and it's not going overseas, and it's not going to your crazy – I'm going to stop.
The transgender comic books in Peru? Yeah, I'm with you. And by the way, Phil, they weren't getting hysterical when they were stealing your money to, quote, pay off student loans. That was what Biden was doing illegally. Not a moment of hysteria about that. But, of course, the second you scrutinize out-of-control government, then that's a problem. Hey, thanks, Phil. I appreciate the call, as always. Let's see here. I've got Scott calling in from Castleton now on line 4. Hello, Scott. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, basically what Phil said, follow the money. Every time the Democrats think they're going to lose money, with the USAID and, of course, with Big Pharma, Bobby Kennedy gets in. Bobby wants to make people healthier so they don't need Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And that is big time for the corrupt politicians in D.C. because those are cash cows for them.
Big time.
And
don't misinterpret me. I think pharmaceutical companies have created amazing products. There's no question. But the idea that they're beyond scrutiny and that somehow you're not allowed to ask any questions whatsoever about drugs is about as absurd as it possibly gets. And it's just another indication, as you point out, Scott, of how corrupt the people who run our government are. And thankfully, RFK coming in and saying we got to do things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. Like what Phil said, he wants to tear it all down. We all do. Everybody that voted and set the country back on course is absolutely right.
Yeah.
We won, so let's do this.
Yep, no question.
Let's get rid of the government that we don't need.
Yep, no question. And they woke us up, and now we're doing controlled demolitions. We gotta knock down a few of these buildings. That's not working. Let's get rid of that. I like that. Coming up, Kyle Seraphin talks to us about the chaos going on inside FBI headquarters right now. If you were an employee at that agency that had anything to do with attacking Joe Biden's political opponents, well, suddenly your employee number's on a list. And, well, there's a panic ensuing. Hey, good afternoon to you. 5:35 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. No agency is more panicked right now about President Trump returning to office than the one who tried to stop it from happening. The FBI freaking out that President Trump is back now as the 47th president of the United States. Here's Andrew McCabe, fired for being a liar from the FBI last night on CNN.
I've talked to more FBI people in the last 4 days than I did in the prior 4 years. As John has described it accurately, it is a place in utter disarray right now. People are worried about, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support my family? If I lose, if you're anywhere in the middle of that career, not close to retirement, if you get fired, you're done. That's the end of your reputation, your ability to get a new job. You lose your pay, you lose your chance at a pension, you lose your health insurance. This is a moment of terror for these people.
Consequences equals terror. Joining us now, Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, host of the Kyle Seraphin Podcast. Sir, good to have you back with us.
How's it going, Vince?
It's amazing, isn't it? So here's an agency that whose mission has been completely subverted into attacking President Trump and the people who support him. And now there's a lot of panic going on inside of FBI headquarters.
Yeah, selfishly, I look at my own story, and I don't remember Andy McCabe worrying about me or any of my buddies who came forward to Congress and said, hey, we have these good faith allegations, and they're not partisan, and they literally have nothing to do about politics. They simply have to do with religious liberties and the fact that we think the First Amendment means something, that the Fourth Amendment should still stand and the agency should respect the Bill of Rights. And maybe you should do your job the way that you signed up to. That was good enough to get us canceled, tossed out of the agency. But now there are people that are panicking. This is a problem that is the FBI's own making, and it lands squarely on FBI management. It should land right there. But they roped everybody in. I'm going to kind of throw something out there that will be almost it's indicative of when this problem started. Obviously, it happened right after January 6th to the folks that did January 6th cases. But the FBI started a program that I've never seen before. They began redacting the names of the agents and other DOJ personnel that were involved in all the legal process that was out in the public. And so they kind of told them that they were ashamed of doing what they were doing. Vince, they don't do that for people that do cartel cases every day, that have legitimate threats on their life from transnational organized crime, from folks that are working on gangs that are local and or national. You don't take your name off the search warrant, off the criminal complaints. You don't take them off any of the work that goes on because you're proud of the work you're doing and you stand up. And obviously, if the agency has to protect you or move you or, relocate your family or put a protective detail on you, they do that. They did something different for J6 cases. And I think it actually indicates right off the bat, they knew that this was a shameful action, but all the things that have been hidden, they're starting to get revealed. I've got some more info that's been kind of going on the way that the Bureau has been trying to obfuscate the orders and the requests for this information too, which I'll share with you today.
Okay, good. Let me just concentrate on what you just said, though, which is that the FBI and the Biden administration broadly, they treated January 6 defendants as more dangerous than members of transnational cartels.
Well, that's me implying that. But what they did is they hid the names of the people that were involved in those cases.
Yes.
I can't understand why you would want to redact somebody unless you thought there was a security risk. And they've actually said that over and over again, out of concerns for the security of the agents. And that's led to some of the other things that you and I have talked about on your program. We've come on here and we've talked about how agents are not wanting to identify themselves when they go and they do a standard knock and talk. They don't want to show their credentials, which are actually issued to them so they can identify themselves to the members of the public that says, hey, I'm an FBI agent. And here is the thing that was given to me by the director of the FBI, which identifies me as such. They don't want to show that anymore. And if you don't want to show who you are, it tells me you're doing some dark deeds. And I've never felt that way. I didn't mind leaving a business card. None of my colleagues, by the way, who are my buddies that are still working in the agency, have any fear for their jobs, nor do they fear answering for any of the work they did, because if you did it the right way and you went after and only pursued cases that were within line with the FBI's mission, there's nothing to worry about.
Yes.
If you actually pursued an assault on a federal officer, which is a regular thing the FBI does at the border every single day, whether it be in McAllen or Laredo or El Paso or Sierra Vista or San Diego, any of the places that you could work all the way across the border, they do these things every single day. If you were pursuing only those from January 6th, nobody would be embarrassed about that. You'd say a cop got hit and we investigated and we either pressed charges, we indicted, or we didn't. And those happen all the time. They get declined for various reasons. Instead, what they did is they went after misdemeanor cases, and they did a ton of them. And so to me, that shows that they knew right off the bat that they bit off more than they could chew, and they were pursuing a political agenda that was embarrassing, and a lot of Americans wouldn't be on board with it. They're just waiting for that other shoe to drop.
My sense, Kyle Seraphin, is that the political actors within the FBI who were directing all of this, they had convinced themselves that it would work, that they would debilitate President Trump and his support and prevent him from ever returning to the Oval Office. They didn't anticipate that this would happen, that President Trump would actually win a clear mandate and then return to the Oval Office where he now has authority over this agency again.
It's just such short-sighted nonsense. We're always 4 or 8 years away from a turn in this country, and the American people are a fickle lot in so much as they don't like political parties as much as they like consistency, and they like rule of law, and they like their kids being able to live in a country that they can look in the eye and say, yeah, this is a respectful place and things are going the right way. And if you step off the path too far from the left or the right, you get corrected. It's happened through all of American history, certainly in my life, but for, at least the last 100 years or so.
Yes.
Nobody gets a monopoly on power. That's just not how it works. And they were acting like it was never going to be accountable. And it was just the worst decision they could have done.
How impressive is it to you that President Trump was able to overcome the full weight of the Justice Department directed at him?
I think it has to do with what God has in store for this country. And I wasn't sure that's where we were going. Like, we could have gone the Sodom and Gomorrah route really quickly as well. And I think some of us saw that as a real possibility, that we were going to be, relegated to the dustbin of history because this country was off the rails. And quite clearly, when you have a Justice Department that is now shielding and redacting the names of people that are going after misdemeanor prosecutions, there's a shameful action underway. And a lot of Americans said that. I think that's why people crossed the aisle that said, maybe I don't like Donald Trump that much. But what they're doing on the other side is also not right. And I don't want to live in a country that does that. I'm going to vote for mean tweets and cheaper gas instead of demonizing a guy who got shot in the head.
Yeah.
And nobody seemed to think that was a really big game changer. We talked about it on your program as well. We were a millimeter or two away from the world changing dramatically in July of last year. And thank God it didn't. And like I said, I think that we've seen this sort of guiding instinct. I didn't think we were going to get the election we got in November. And I'm very grateful we did. And I have to imagine the amount of you can even tell the way that Donald Trump is reacting right now. He's more at peace.
Yes.
He's calm. He's focused. That anxiety of having the weight of the government fighting you, it's a real thing. I felt it in a smaller way myself, and it's debilitating. It'll cause GI issues. It causes you not to sleep. It causes you to be snappy with your spouse and your kids. And you're just seeing a different Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
He's been let off the chain. And honestly, thank God for that, because it needs to happen right now.
Yes. And he was able to overcome these attacks, which I think has given him a tremendous sense of self-confidence, too. You mentioned a moment ago, Kyle Seraphin, that you also wanted to talk a little bit, I believe, about the efforts within the FBI to conceal records.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that are going on. First of all, we all know about the fork email that went out to opm.gov/fork. They gave an opportunity for people to basically self-assess that they were not valuable federal employees, that they were the kind of people that got to stay home when there was a shutdown. And so there's this big resistance to that. And how do we subvert that? There was also a requirement to return home. Literally on Inauguration Day, Trump signed an executive order saying that all the federal employees must cease working at home and go into the office. And the FBI is not doing that right now. What they've determined is that what Trump's EO meant was remote work. And what they're doing is telework, which sounds like the same thing to you and I because we're regular people. But in the government, they have specific words that mean specific things. Remote work means that you work from your home and you don't live in the area where your office is. And telework means that you live in the area, but you're working at home. So all the people that live outside of D.C. and don't want to commute into D.C. are still allowed to work from home at the FBI. They've determined that through their attorneys because they are just doing this little subversion. And the second thing is this request for all the names of the J6 case participants and case managers. Now, again, I have a nuanced view. Nobody asked me what my view is, but I don't think that people who did legitimate and righteous cases should be punished for doing what the FBI always does, which is evaluate assaults on federal officers, destruction of federal property, and so on. Those are all reasonable things to do as a case agent. But that requested set of 5,000 names that we just saw reported on CNN and others saying that they went over to the Justice Department, some of the FBI field offices have taken it upon themselves to not give names. They gave what are called EINs or employee ID numbers. Now, there's a one-to-one correlation between the name and the number, and of course, they all exist in the DOJ's global directory. So anybody who works for DOJ could look up an EIN and find out the name associated with it. But it's just one more step of obstructionism that's going on. I was told it happened in Boston, and it was told it happened in Portland as well. I'm sure there were other special agents in charge that decided on their own, like sort of a sua sponte move, that they were going to protect their agents by hiding their names.
Yes.
But this is a lawful order. And if they ask you for names, you got to give them names. It's not really that complicated.
So you summarized it really well, but the CNN report that Kyle Seraphin is referring to says today that the FBI has turned over records of 5,000 employees who worked on January 6 cases to the Justice Department. One of the things that strikes me as stunning is that the FBI has 38,000 total employees. That's among agents and all the other employees who work for the FBI. 38,000 total. 5,000 of those people were working on January 6 cases. 5,000. Kyle Seraphin, talk about a tremendous waste of time, resources, and lost opportunities to go after real crimes that are really damaging the country.
So my buddy Phil was an agent at the Washington field office just like I was. He had 15 years in. He's also a CPA, and so he does accounting work. And so he looked at this. He was a white-collar investigator for the Bureau. So he just did the quick math on it, and he said, the FBI costs $11 billion a year. You had 4 years of agents working on this at roughly $290,000 per person if you were to just divide the cost of the FBI against the number of employees. Obviously, that's not what they get paid, but assume just kind of broadly speaking. Right. It means that they spent $6 billion on January 6 cases for essentially a couple hundred people that were involved in assault on federal officer cases and like some destruction of property. There was not any real, like all of the other things were sort of concocted by the government. And there's a reason why Donald Trump went through and pardoned everybody in a blanket pardon, because it was so over the top on the DOJ side that I don't think he had the opportunity to say, well, we can suss out that these were better cases and these were not. What you saw is the government did wrong. They overstepped the boundaries. They pursued things they would have never done before. And, if you just did that math on it, that's kind of rough math. It's probably to the tune of something like $6 billion worth of waste. Now, every FBI case is assigned a budget, fictional budget of $100,000 for the case, but rarely do small, incidental, transactional business like an assault on federal officer cases cost more than a couple hours. You go out there and get a couple interviews. You go and you get the photographic or the video evidence of it. You collect something if there's something the officer has. And then they indict or they don't. And they, a lot of times it's like somebody got pushed over and they knocked over their sunglasses and there was no injury. And they don't even pursue it. It's a regular thing that these things get declined. To imagine the number of hours that were spent on J6 cases and what's the opportunity cost, Vince? Like, what were we not pursuing as a country because we had 1 in 7 FBI employees dealing with J6 nonsense?
We unfortunately found out the answer to that question the really rough way. There was a lot of problems. One other piece here that I want to hit with you, Kyle Seraphin. FBI agents are apparently a part of now a class action lawsuit against the United States Department of Justice trying to block them from gaining access to all of this information. Now, of course, the news this afternoon is that the DOJ now is in control of a list of some 5,000 FBI employees who were involved in going after President Trump supporters. What do you make of this class action lawsuit against the federal government by federal agents?
I think it's a Crimea River situation. We have a mass action right now against the COVID mandates that are still a problem for people who lost their jobs, were discriminated against, who lost promotions, all kinds of different levels of shenanigans that were perpetrated against actual FBI employees that were trying to do their job and had a religious right to be accommodated. And that didn't get done yet. We're still dealing with that. We haven't seen the end of it. So for the fact that they're crying about their actual government records being turned over to the government agency that is the parent organization, DOJ is in charge of the FBI. It rolls up in the org chart. It's really, really clear how it works. What it tells you, though, is this kind of broader thing that you're hearing Democrats talk about on the floor, in Congress. You're hearing the senators talk about this, that the people that work inside the executive branch are not accountable to the president. They somehow answer to the American people in this fictional sense. And apparently they need to go back and read their Constitution, because when we talk about the government most broadly, we're almost always talking about executive agencies, and they all answer at the end of the day to the president of the United States, who changed, January 20th. So these people don't want to get with the programs. I think they've been really used to being able to resist. They had a pretty good run 2017 through 2021 under the original Donald Trump era. And I think Donald Trump sort of accommodated and played nice with a lot of people that, you kind of learn the ropes. You understand what it looks like. I also think we're going to look back and see that the 4 years of Joe Biden, as atrocious as they were for civil liberties, as atrocious as they were for government overreach, they're going to end up being a blessing. Like so many things in the world, it gave us an opportunity to take a pause, to see the differential between Trump 1.0 and 2.0.
Yep.
And this second round, I think the first, 10 or 12 days of it have already been mind-blowing for the speed of government. I mean, it's too fast for them to handle. It's the speed of business. It's the speed of the news cycle, which is amazing for those of us watching it. And I think it's leaving the government employees kind of on their back foot going, how the heck did we get here?
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, no, this could not have happened if President Trump was simply reelected the first go around. It had to take this series of events. Once again, a reminder to me that God's plan is not my plan, but it's a lot better than mine. That's for sure. Hey, Kyle Seraphin, thank you. Always good to talk to you, sir. Oh, man, we are so over the target. Democrats are out in front of the United States Treasury right now going absolutely ballistic. Here's Chuck Schumer.
And we cannot allow Elon Musk and a small group of people to secretly, behind closed doors, take away our privacy.
Behind closed doors, like what, USAID?
Take away our dollars. Take away everything we have.
Take away everything we have, says Chuck Schumer. Those are the stakes. Everything he has is on the line. Here's Senator Ed Markey going ballistic.
And right now, all across America, people are knocked down, but they are getting up, and they are going to fight.
Yeah, against you.
The dictator of Donald Trump and his henchman, Elon Musk.
Oh, my goodness, they're going crazy. Elizabeth Warren also going nuts.
In the building behind me, Elon Musk is seizing power from the American people.
No, bringing it back. Yeah, boo, Elizabeth Warren, you stink.
We are here to fight back.
Oh, yeah. On behalf of your wealthy donors. What a scam. What a complete scam. What's the expression? A hit dog will holler. Keep hitting that dog. It's going great. It's going absolutely great. I'm loving it so much. Up next here on WMAL, the great one, Mark Levin. I'll be with you tomorrow.